Good evening, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Guam Public Utilities Commission at 6:39 p.m., March 30th, 2023. We have two commissioners absent this evening, Mr. Montanola and Mrs. Brooks. Everybody else is in attendance. First order of business is approval of minutes of the February 23rd, 2023 meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We're going to start with GWA this evening. GWA docket 2305, petition to approve additional funding for the GEGO sewer pump station flood mitigation and facility rehabilitation construction project. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. I believe this is yours, Fred?
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to recuse on this one. My law firm represents GWA in some ongoing litigation.
Okay, Mr. Pangilinan is recused from this matter. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Fred.
All right. Chairman, Commissioners, this matter involves GWA's request for additional funding for the GEGO sewer pump station, flood mitigation, and facility rehabilitation construction project. Going back over the history, in 2018, GWA had contracted with ACOM Technical Services for the design of this project. And after the design was completed, GWA issued an invitation for construction services, and it entered into a construction contract with Ian Corporation in 2021. And this was for the demolition of features within existing sewer pump station building and for the demolition of specific equipment for the GEGO sewer pump station. Basically, there was new rehabilitation and flood mitigation features for the pump station. They were to be constructed. The contract price at that time was $928,884 plus dollars. The GEGO system or pump station is basically located within a known flood area, and the building floods during extreme or heavy wet weather events. It's also an older building, and due to flooding, age, and usage, its condition had deteriorated, requiring replacement or rehabilitation of various parts of the plant and also raising security concerns. In the contract agreement between GWA and Ian requires certain work to be done. I've outlined that in my report. It's demolition of certain existing equipment, and then adding basically rehabilitation and flood mitigation features, raising louver sills, elevated platforms, site work, etc., to deal with the flood mitigation aspects. The project was initially supposed to be completed within 360 days. But during the construction phase, there were additional safety and operability concerns of the pump station. And these involved mostly the motor control center, the hoist, and the platform. There were discussions between Ian, GWA, and GWA, and they negotiated a change order for an additional amount of $184,491.28. That's draft change order number 1. And here are the aspects of this change order. First is revision of the height of the motor control center to address the clearance issue between the proposed motor control center and the ceilings and monorail beam. Secondly, upgrade of the hoist capacity from 1 ton to 2 ton for additional capacity and useful life. And third, change of design and material for an elevated platform to allow for safer working conditions as well as ease of maintenance of the pump station, mechanical and electrical equipment, especially in the event of area flooding. If the change order is approved by the PUC, the total contract amount would be $1,113,376.02. So at this point, GWA petitions the PUC to review and approve the additional funding amount of the 184 plus thousand. Now, under the contract review protocol, the contract now exceeds $1 million. That must be reviewed by the PUC and also involves the use of bond funds, the use of which must always be reviewed by the PUC. In the ALJ's opinion here, GWA has justified the need for the improvements and the service under change order number 1. And these are the additional safety and operability concerns. Unless the change order is approved, the additional safety and operability concerns that were not addressed under the initial scope of the contract could not be addressed. Also, I would note that after Ian Corporation proposed these changes, the contractor project manager for GWA, that's Duenas Camacho and Associates, approved the proposed change order and the additional cost for the services. The additional funding appears to be reasonable, prudent, and necessary. The record demonstrates that the cost of the proposed change order was extensively negotiated between Ian and GWA's project representative, Duenas Camacho and Associates. I believe when the additional funding was first proposed by Ian, it was somewhere around $300,000. So you can see in the record that actually there was a very determined effort by Duenas Camacho and GWA to reduce the cost of this additional funding. In addition, GWA Resolution 13 FY 2023, there the Consolidated Commission on Utilities found the change order to be fair and reasonable and needed to complete the work under the contract. The CCU authorized the total funding amount of $1,113,376.02. And the CCU authorized GWA management to petition the PUC. Now, I did note in reviewing this that there will be some delay in this project. It was originally supposed to take about a year, but at this point, the only thing I couldn't determine from the paperwork is when this additional work will be completed. DCA had stated in a letter to GCA in February of this year that a review of the contractor's August 18, 2022 time extension and makeup schedule is ongoing, and further negotiations for this time extension request are expected to continue. So I suppose they will agree to that at a later time. Based upon the documentation in the record, GWA has justified approval by the PUC of the GWA Chigo Sewer Pump Station Flood Mitigation and Facility Rehabilitation Construction Project. The ALJ concludes that the PUC should approve the total funding of the contract in the amount of $1,113,376.02, which includes the funding for change order number 1. And I have submitted an order that would accomplish that approval and approve both the original project and the additional funding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Fred. Any comments from GWA?
First of all, I'd like to extend the apologies to fellow managers and I was unable to proceed with the the record, my name is Chris Gugatti. I'm the assistant fellow manager of administration supporting the GWA. With respect to this change order, it's really all about safety and the ability to properly
At the beginning of the project, as it progressed, some of the operators came out to review the work that was being done and made some additional suggestions that were the genesis for this change order. And the engineers felt that they were good additions to the project to ensure that the operators' safety was paramount once the pump station was in operation. Additionally, since that time, our engineering team has incorporated the operator review at the very beginning of the process, so in the future, their SOPs will reflect that, so something like this shouldn't happen again.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
What is the anticipated delay?
I think I'm not certain of how much the delay will be at this time. I think everything's ready and it's queued up. So as soon as we get approval for it, work will begin. But as far as how much additional time will be added to the project, I'm not sure. I can try to get that information.
Rowena?
Chris, are they doing any current work right now that this approval would hold up any
So I think
progress on the
the pump
project?
station, a lot of the work that has been done already, and it's just waiting on these changes. So there has been work done on it, but it stopped when the first discussions came up about this.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve CWA docket 23-05.
Thank you, Pedro. Is there a second? Joe seconds. All in favor say aye. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I think we're going to move, since we're still waiting for some folks from GPA, I think we'll go to administrative matters. Is that okay, Fred?
Yes.
Okay. So next item will be status of the PUC purchase of a certificate deposit term share.
I'd like to defer to Colleen, who's prepared a nice report, a status report, which I think is very comprehensive.
Okay?
Colleen?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So in the report, we just broke it down by the tasks according to the resolution. The first task being becoming a member of Coast 360, which was completed. The second task being setting up the account at Coast 360. I would note in the first report, it was mentioned it was in progress, but the administrator, Lou, was able to complete it yesterday after acquiring the required documents needed from the chairman for Coast 360. Then from there, she had to move on to the next task, which is depositing the $50,000 pursuant to the resolution. And it was during that transaction where the administrator was informed by Coast 360 that once this $50,000 is deposited into the timeshare, she would not be able to add any additional funds. So if you would note in our resolution, the plan was to add another $50,000 3 months after the initial $50,000. So she, according to Administrator Liu, she contacted Mr. Harecki, who then advised her that to just proceed with the $50,000 pursuant to the resolution. So at this time, that's what we have in the timeshare, $50,000. That's our current balance. And Ms. Liu now reverts the second deposit that's supposed to be upcoming in the next 3 months back to the commissioners for reconsideration and further guidance.
Thank you, Colleen. I don't think we need to pass any motions at this point in time, but any comments from the commissioners?
So another resolution will need to be prepared.
Yeah, that's what we agreed to last
Okay.
meeting.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Thanks again, Colleen. Next item is fiscal year 2022 citizen-centric report. Are you going to cover this one, Fred?
I could, since Ms. Lou is not here.
Yeah.
She and I have been working on this. Actually, we started kind of early this year to try to get it done because, you know, we have the procurements pending. And, oh, I'm sorry. Lou, do you want to report on the citizen-centric report? Thank you. Okay, well, I'll just say it's, I reviewed it and it looks pretty good to me. So I think the form is very nice.
Yeah,
It's
it's
well
very nice.
reorganized. It looks very good. And if the commissioners are comfortable with the report, then I think we're ready to forward it on to the OPA and other bodies.
How did you have this formatted this way? This is really impressive looking. It was,
That's all credit to Ms. Palomo, not me.
I think we're basically following the pattern from previous years, right, Lou?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Similar to it. To kind of change the format of a regular report, as Commissioner Brooks stated earlier.
Looks very nice, Lou.
Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion to accept it as prepared?
is there a missing letter on page 2? Top?
Yes, there is. Good pickup, Mike. Top of page 2, Lou. How?
Is it an H or an N? An H, right? It's missing.
How we have progressed.
Oh.
The H is missing.
Okay.
That was probably Mr. Horecki, I believe, right?
If you could just reread it for typos, okay? Is there one? There's one in the second bullet, first page, second bullet, about the PC. So you may want to just do another once over for typographical errors.
Yeah, we'll run through it for typos.
Yeah.
Other than that, are we ready to accept this?
Move to accept the FY 2022 citizen-centric report as submitted with
Thanks, Rowena.
corrections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mike seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We have our distinguished guest, Mr. Beneventi, with us now, so we're going to come back to GPA now, John. Next item is GPA docket 2312, petition for review and approval of GPA's request for procurement of the bulk supply of diesel fuel oil. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Joe Fett, I believe this is yours.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this matter is before the Commission pursuant to GPA's request for approval to issue procurement for bulk supply of diesel fuel oil. And according to GPA, its contract with Mobile Oil Guam for use of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel is set to expire on January 31st, 2024. And therefore, GPA is now before us to obtain PUC authority to procure a new contract for the ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel oil. And as this commission may be aware, GPA currently maintains and operates several units that use this ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel oil, which include PD 7, 8, and 9. And in addition, once the new Ukudu power plant comes online, GPA will need this type of diesel fuel to power up that particular plant. Now, in support of its request, GPA has provided the PUC with the proposed contract for the bulk supply of fuel oil. The proposed contract includes a provision that allows the contractor to source fuel oil from other vendors in order to guarantee fuel oil supply security. Another important provision that I saw in the contract was that it also contains a provision that allows GPA to seek an alternative source of fuel oil from another vendor in instances where the contractor is unable to fulfill its supply obligations. And in that instance, Mr. Chairman, the contractor will be liable to GPA for the difference in the cost of that fuel oil. In addition, the contract also contains a provision that allows GPA to terminate the contract on convenience. Therefore, they can terminate any delivery of fuel oil supply in whole or in part by simply providing the contractor with a notice of termination, which is basically a notice provided to the contractor 120 days prior to the date that GPA intends on terminating the contract. According to the contract, the term will be for an initial 3 years, beginning on February 1st, 2024, and will last through January 31st, 2027. They've also indicated the intention to have options to extend the contract by an additional 2 years. GPA has estimated that we'll need about 1 million to 2 million barrels of this ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel oil for the first year of the contract, and then about 1.5 million to 2.5 million barrels of fuel oil for the second year of the contract, and then about 2 million to 2.7 million barrels of fuel oil for the third year of the contract. And they project that the cost for a barrel of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel oil will be roughly at $113.40 per barrel, with a contractor's premium of about $4 per barrel. Therefore, based on this math, on the high end, GPA has estimated that the total cost for the 3 years of this bulk supply of this fuel oil would be about roughly $845 million. And this petition, Mr. Chairman, was supported by the CCU resolution, specifically GPA resolution number 2023-12, where it authorized GPA to petition the PUC for approval to procure this fuel oil, and further authorized GPA to issue the invitation for bid. And this commission has consistently determined that GPA requires a continuous supply of this diesel fuel in order to maintain the authority's electric power generation capacity. And as we may all be aware, this is certainly important, especially during times where certain baseload units are down, and so that the procurement of this fuel oil, we've consistently found it to be reasonable, prudent, and necessary. And in my review of the proposed contract, the contract also appears to adequately protect the interest of GPA and its ratepayers by including certain provisions on warranty and quality assurance, certain insurance requirements, and a provision on termination for convenience. And so, Mr. Chairman, based on this record, I recommended that the PUC approve GPA's request to issue an invitation for bid for the procurement of this bulk supply of fuel oil, and the proposed order attached to the ALJ report authorizes GPA to issue the IFB on it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you, Commissioners. Apologize for the delay. It's come from the CC meeting. We had the option, as the President said, we had the option of 2 one-year contracts with Mobile, additional extensions. However, Mobile request for adjustment of the premium, we saw that to be too high, and that's why we do at that time to go out for a new contract. And as mentioned, this really will be the contract for PD 8 and 9. Basically, a lot of the other units, if we can feed them from Okudu at some point in the near future. and for the Okudu power plant itself. So this is a ultra low sulfur diesel with less metals within the fuel, so that the combustion turbine can run well and have less impact on maintenance. No? So yes, we do have the 2 1-year option, but again, we thought the price is way too high than what we think it should be, and that's why we're asking to go out and request and again bid out for a 3-year base period and a 2 1-year options simulated to them. No.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
Move to approve?
Rowena makes a motion to approve. Is there a second? Joe seconds. All in favor say aye. The motion carries unanimously. Next item. GPA docket 2311, petition for review and approval of the PD 8 and 9 contract extension with MEC. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Basically, in 1996, GPA contracted with the predecessor of MEC as an independent power producer to build, operate, and transfer the PD 8 and 9 power plant. And MEC, or its predecessor, have essentially been in charge of the operation and maintenance of those plants since, I think it was completed in 1999. So they're very, very experienced on that. As a starting point, the question before you as to whether to grant a second 5-year extension is not plowing new ground. The PUC already approved a 5-year extension, the first extension of the energy conversion agreement in January 2019, and that extension expires in 2024. At this point, GPA and MEC now seek to further extend the ECA from January 2024 to January 2029. As I pointed out, you've already previously approved the authority of GPA and the MEC to extend the energy conversion agreement. And in the prior case, that was GPA docket 1813, it provided, first of all, under the ECA, that MEC was required to transfer ownership of PD 8 and 9 to GPA in January 2019. But before the ownership was transferred, that's when GPA and MEC came to the PUC and said they would like to extend for 5 years the operation and management portion of the contract. The PUC approved that extension on a number of grounds. First, that in no uncertain terms, the parties had the right to amend the agreement, and Section 32 of the ECA provided that this agreement may be amended at any time by mutual agreement of the parties in writing and signed by a duly authorized representative of each party. PUC went on, the agreement in no manner places any restriction on the parties regarding the amendment power. It is a broad, unlimited power. And based upon the amendment power, the PUC approved the first 5-year extension. So as I see this legally, the questions of authority have already been resolved by the PUC. That led me to conduct a kind of deeper dive into the language of the energy conversion agreement. And I think after doing that, I'm more convinced than ever that the parties do have the authority to amend. if you look in the ECA, it defines the cooperation period. And that was the 20-year period that all the activities under the ECA were to occur. The building of the plant, the operation, the management, everything. And specifically in the ECA, it states that the cooperation period may be extended from time to time pursuant to the terms thereof. When you look at the ECA, it really included a lot of separate and distinct functions. It included design, construction, equipping, completion, testing, commissioning, and operation and maintenance of the power station. So in 2019, essentially what GPA and MEC did was to extend one aspect of the contract, which was the operation and management and operation of the power station. And as I read the ECA, I mean, that's entirely permissible. These were all, in a sense, although they're related duties, you know, they could be looked at separately. So even though GPA, the plant was transferred to GPA, they could still agree to extend the operation and maintenance of the plant. Now, if we look beyond the mere legality, both GPA and MEC have really offered some substantial justifications for the second 5-year extension. We know now that our power system is really in a very fragile state. Look what's happened to the Cabras plants over the last month or so. Look at tonight. I just read in the newspaper we may have some power outage tonight. We have a fragile system with not enough capacity necessarily to avoid load shedding when the Cabras plants go down, or even possibly, as happened before, if the PD plants go down. So GPA indicates it really needs the PD plants until the new 198 megawatt Ukadu plant is completed. And that'll be the next couple of years, and probably at least a year after the Ukadu plant is in operation, to get all the issues shaken out to have it fully operated. So the PD plants, as reliable and efficient plants, are really crucial to avoid load shedding. In GPA Resolution FY 202309, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities also offered some justifications for the 5-year contract extension. Now, right now, PD 8 and 9 produce 38% of the energy that we have in our island-wide power system for Guam. And that 38% really needs to stay in effect and to be available until the new power plants are built. Also, GPA's problem is if MEC doesn't operate the plant, it would have to come up with personnel to do that. And GPA says that it would be challenged to hire and train personnel to manage, operate, and maintain the plant upon the expiration of the amended ECA. Furthermore, from MEC's side, they're saying that since the current management and operation agreement will terminate in 2024, that its employees feel a lack of job security, and they already are leaving MEC for other jobs with other entities. So MEC is saying that this extension is really necessary so that it can maintain its employees to operate the plant. As I mentioned, MEC and its predecessors have managed the plant for 24 years. It is the most efficient plant in the GPA power system. It produces more energy than the other units and at a lower cost. GPA indicated that at 15.4 net, 15.4 cents per kilowatt It's 9 to 13 cents cheaper than Cabras and the reserve units. Now, there does come a cost, of course, with continuing to have MEC manage PD 8 and 9, and that seemed to be, at present, roughly 25 to 27 million a year. But based upon the numerous justifications that MEC and GPA have provided, the administrative law judge concludes that both the legal authority and justifications for a second 5-year extension have been established. The ALJ recommends that the PUC approve the second 5-year extension. And it should be noted, and Commissioner Guerrero had raised this question, well, how about after the Ukadu plant comes into operation? Even GPA has stated that after the commission of the Ukadu plant, the capacity factor and use of the PD units will decrease. So it's pretty clear that after Ukadu is in effect, the PD plants will be more like intermediate units, no longer base load necessarily, and the cost should go down at that point. I prepared an order for your consideration, which would approve the 5-year extension.
Thank you, Fred. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is one of our first independent power producing plant, no, which was a 20-year contract. And again, all the employees are MEC employees, which is quite different than the performance management contractors. For example, Cabras 1 and 2, where the employees are GPA employees and they have a PMC. So we can run the plan moving forward until we get the new management team on board, right? So it's a again, the other thing is PD 8 and 9 were also converted to ultra-low sulfur diesel to comply with the consent decree. And that was done in July of last year. So it's going to take about a year and a half to clean out the box on all of that scenario. So the plant now is more volatile in terms of compared to heavy oil. Diesel is more volatile, therefore issues have to be addressed much more quickly so that there are no significant issues in the power plant. As far as getting people to run it, lest we forget Cabras 3 and 4, we ran that plant. We had a PMC. Unfortunately, not blaming anybody, but at the end, it shows how complicated the plan is. It is the most efficient, and again, huge savings for us. And likewise, if it's not running, huge cost for us. So, Mr. Chair, the consent decree had to be delayed. First of all, the first extension was provided, and the plan then was that the Ukudu was going to be aligned on October 2022. So therefore, 2024 gave us enough time to get the Ukudu running and all the bugs out, and then we can decide what further we can do with PD 8 and 9. Well, unfortunately, that got extended to April 2024, and maybe now sometime in the summer of 2024. Then you have some time for the commissioning and debugging of the system. And then furthermore, what we're going out for bid for is the phase 4, which provides for shifting batteries. That will help the system strengthen and be able to provide again additional capacity, which lessens the need for other reserves. No? So the next 3 to 5 year period of time is critical for us. I'm sorry, I just don't need any additional load on my shoulder at this point in time, and most especially with our taking the risk of such an important unit for us. And so that's therefore why you see this at that point, and we will evaluate. It will be evaluated then what will be PD's 8 and 9's role, no? Because just as Fred mentioned, with the capacity factor being lowered to about intermediate or so, which is probably around 15-20% once the Okudu power plant comes on. You are going to see a reduction in the cost, because what happens is that the variable cost, because if the unit is not running, several million, so you're going to see that cost come down to about 7 million, no? For 88 megawatts within the whole system. But in the meantime, it is saving us money. The cost, the extension is reasonable. They have been saving money from putting in a new oil injection system, which offset the additional urea that we have to pay for the new ultra-low sulfur diesel. So with that said, Mr. Chair, the biggest really thing there is we don't have the personnel to run it, and even if someone was to try, they will say yes, we can get the personnel. The proof is in the pudding. Experience, you don't just come in and run that plant. Those people have been there for 20 some years, and we need them there for the next few years, and then after that, really, some decisions could be made better, additional 4, 8, and 9. But right now, I ask the Commission to please approve the extension, and so that it's one less burden that we have to worry about. So yes, this morning, Caver's number 2 had another boiler tube leak, and at the same time, PD number 8 was taken down on Monday or Tuesday for a 3 to 4 day overhaul, which was delayed because of the Caver's 1 and 2 issue. And so that's why we sent out the message today. The good news so far is that we haven't had to take anybody out, but again, we try to give the notice out, whether, before we'll say, never mind, we'll try and, but now we give the notice, at least people will have some expectations or some planning, no? So, yeah, and we are working on another scenario that will be before you, hopefully without any protests, and that's the Jigu diesel PMC, because there's where we took over. You have approved a PMC already. We went out for the PMC, and guess what? It got protested. So we had to make a decision where if we did change, if the Commission did want to say, I want to bring in see whether another group can service us, then because the research, because the utilization is already down, then we can consider it at that point. No? It opens up that option. Right now, to me, it's kind of not an option because of the criticalness of the machine. But yeah, right now it looks like it could be again a long-term solution because of the investment that we have put in it, including we have done capitalized maintenance into the machine as part of the initial extension. We put in like $7 to $10 million to change our liners, various things, no? So we have been investing the machine to make sure the reliability is there, and that could go a long way. So that will be up for consideration, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any questions from the commissioners? If not, is there a motion?
John, are we looking at 27 million? per year to keep up PD 89?
I think it's more like, I think that's the investment that have been put into,
Oh.
plus the O&M, if you put that, but I think you're looking at around 11 to
Okay.
12 million, I think, a year.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think that's the O&M. And then you're looking at that going down to probably around 7 or 8 once the Okudu plan comes online or things like that. I'm sorry if I missed that word at 20. What does that explain?
The figures I had were that for FY 2022, the cost breakdown was as follows. This includes things like fuel handling, other contractual, so it's probably not just MEC.
Yes, not the same.
Total O&M, capital projects completed, so that all came up to 25.
So that's the investments that we have put in, but no, moving forward, what we see is about 11. And then we will decide. They have to submit a budget. We'll decide what other investments might be, whether $1 million or $2 million. But that's about the magnitude moving forward.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see us surviving without those two plants running for at least the next 2 years.
Like I said, Mr. Chair, I just don't need any extra burden right at this point because, and when I say that, that means, I mean, never say never, right? But I think it's a big impact to us. If it doesn't run, it costs us money, huge money because of the fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Pedro?
Yeah, for GPA, just a lot of inserts going on at the same time for the next 4 years or 6 years to 2030. And we have the 50% renewable supposed to be in place. And my concern is the timing of this and what you insert at a certain time. We're looking for a 5-year contract for Campus 8 and 9, but you got other units. So maybe not what the renewable plan will look like is what the retirement plan of those small plants that we have that are going to be there for the next 7 years, but maybe will never be used. So that is my concern, is how do you wiggle this thing in to make it work the most efficiently as you can. But I understand the need, and that's why there's question, because the dates just keep moving on when Ukad is going to get completed. My head tells me it's April 2024, which is 12 months from today. Now, if that's really true, or then is it going to happen? It's a very, I guess when you operate generation, you need to be looking at the board all the time now because we got so many inserts.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, that's all.
Yeah.
As long as you think it's required and there's nothing says for sure that UCAD will be 198 minutes. I know that. But maybe if you look at like an 80% efficiency, UCAD and then the rest, it's really, there's so many things being inserted to 2030. And that's a complicated thing, because if it wasn't for that, it would be smooth. And then now, you've got the fuel stabilized, one kind of fuel, so it's one kind of cost. So we just did the new cost analysis, and that's why I kind of made a comment, so this is the new DIAC. But maybe not, because now you got the renewables kicking in, and that's reducing DIAC. So, just something to, but as far as the request is going on, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Document.
Thank you, Pedro. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mike seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Next
Thank
item.
you. Thank you very much.
Next item is GPA docket 2313, petition to approve the month-to-month extension for professional printing, mailing, and processing services. We have a PUC council report and a proposed order. I believe this one is yours, Anthony.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. Now, this particular docket, or this particular issue, I should say, is no stranger to the PUC. What happened here is our power bills for every ratepayer basically is they're done by an independent contractor, in this case Graphic Center. Graphic Center had originally a 5-year contract and that has now expired. They went out to bid prior to the expiration of that contract, and GPA had identified InfoSend as the awardee for that bid. They were not able to award the contract, unfortunately, because Graphic Center then filed a protest, and under Guam procurement law, there's an automatic stay prohibiting the purchasing agency from proceeding with the procurement until the protest is finally resolved. Initially, the protest was denied. Graphic Center appealed to the OPA. The OPA eventually ruled in GPA's favor, and through that process, however, GPA had to extend its contract with Graphic Center initially for 8 months. After the OPA denied the request or denied the appeal, Graphic Center then appealed to the Superior Court of Guam. As a result of that continued delay, the contract with Graphic Center was extended from 2002 to 2023. Currently, it will expire in May or so of 2023. So what GPA is asking the PUC tonight is that it approve the contract, another contract extension for another 12-month period from basically May of 2023 to May of 2024. And the justification is essentially that the Superior Court of Guam is still deciding the matter. It's still pending before them. And I believe there's a status hearing scheduled for May of this year. So going over the cost, well, essentially, this extension is going to cost $460,000 for the next 1 year. How does that stack up with the initial contract and the various extensions after that? Well, it is about $14,660 more per month than the initial contract term. I'm estimating it the next 12 months will cost $38,500 per month. So hence, yeah, $38,500 per month for the next 12 months. So that's about $14,660,000 more than the initial term. It is about $13,337 more than the prior year extension. $13,333 more than the prior year extension, and it's about essentially. Sorry, I got my numbers here. I don't have my reading glasses. I apologize. But the bottom line is what it's closest to is that initial 8-month extension. That 8-month extension was about $37,500 per month. That 8-month extension took place between 2021 and 2022. And this is closest to that. It's only $833,000 more. But that's kind of where we're at. If the commission were to deny this, that would likely force GPA into the digital age and require them to send their bills electronically to all 50,000 customers until at least this matter is resolved. GPA has said prior to this, during its request for these various extension, it no longer has the internal capacity or capability to print out the 50,000 or so bills and mail them. So that's the issue that we face, and of course, because this billing procedure is so important to GPA's revenues, I have found that this extension is necessary, essentially, because without it, GPA's billing process will be severely disrupted. It's prudent because until the essentially the procurement appeal currently before the Superior Court is decided finally, that automatic stay must remain. GPA cannot award the contract to InfoSet as it desires. And finally, I find, despite the increased costs, the costs are reasonable. I believe the costs could easily be attributed to the general rise in costs that we see as a result of the current national and global economy as well. All prices are going up, and in fact, if you look at 2021 to 2022, that was a period of very high inflation, hence the $37,500 cost per month for the contract then is very comparable to our current economic situation and high inflationary period now. So I find the request to be reasonable, prudent, and necessary. It's my recommendation that the PUC approve the petition, and I have provided an order that would do so, subject to your questions, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. GPA?
I'll go ahead and give the big picture, and then any other questions on the numbers John can help us with. This is another case in point of our protest rules and regulations. If you recall, we had a bid award for Phase 3. That was 50 megawatts with energy storage batteries and Navy property that we lost. We won the battle with the OPA and the Superior Court, but we lost the war because the proponent no longer could give us that price, and secondly, no longer wanted to even give us a price because of the global chain issues for solar PV. So here's another case in point where we went out and bid. We got a lower bidder. Unfortunately, it was been protested, and the time frame to go through the OPA, which they have ruled in our favor, and now in Superior Court, the process that the Phase 3 took was 2 years. This is heading in the same direction. So again, this is the price the ratepayers pay for that protest rules. Part of the good news is that we have talked to Senator Sabina Flores, right? Correct, right? And see, Paris, I'm sorry, not Flores, Paris, I knew there was something wrong there. And that, sorry, Senator, and then that will be addressed, there's a bill before that will be addressed to make it where if the entities show that there's a huge benefit to the ratepayers then they can proceed with the process even more as going through as long as they get the initial OPA clearing of the gates. So it's substantially better than where it is today. And so that's what we've been working on to try and alleviate and get away from this type of scenario, no? Because the other thing is that because we're getting to renewables, a lot of people spend hundreds of thousands, maybe millions to prepare a renewable bid today. And then you go through this protest and monies are changed, timelines, options for land are changed. It just creates a whole havoc for the utility. So hopefully, and I'm sure if you see that bill, you probably will support it. And again, but as far as this one, Attorney Camacho is correct. We have to get the bills out to make sure that we get the revenues in. Okay. Maybe I mean, we haven't even begun to attempt to try and do it in-house again, you know. I think there's option out there. We can just get by this procurement process.
Thank you, John. Any questions from the commissioners? Pedro?
Yeah, without further ado, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Pedro. Is there a second? Rowena seconds. All in favor say aye. The motion carries unanimously. Say, John, while I have you here, both of you, what is the, do you have up-to-date numbers on the LEAC, where we're sitting on that right now, John?
So February 28th, the under recovery was 27.
Yes, as of February, end of the month, about $27 million.
Okay. So we're tracking better. We gained, I guess, about 6 million or so from the previous month.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be tracking lower, more recovery as time goes
All right.
We'll look a little closely in here in April, because we have to submit to yourself May. It's June 15, but we typically submit it in May. So we'll take a look what other things have changed, and maybe try and make a recommendation on
Okay.
the rates. No? But right now, if we sustain what we're doing today, the recovery is really coming in. Oh, it could have recovered more, but I believe because there's been a lot of rain lately, so which is good for the ratepayers because they're not paying more.
Yeah.
But that impacts some of the recovery. But I think by the April to May, we should be able to make a recommendation.
Okay.
Taking all the numbers, the priors and our under recovery, where we're going, and come back so that we can get to the ratepayers.
Very good. Thank you. I think that concludes our meeting tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? Thank you, everyone.